Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on November 7th, 2021 at approximately 9:42 p.m. PST. Now, as I said yesterday, where things went as far as the Yldrbacian Chronicles is I took a look at it, and when I originally started writing it, I had done the normal disclaimer and went, any similarity between people or places in this book have been are purely coincidental. Well, I stumbled over that badly. By the way, this is a live recording, meaning that when I get done, I go back, double check, make sure I got the date right, and other than that, it gets posted as is with all the stumbles, all the hiccups. So I started out thinking that, and I literally wrote that in the original transcript, and I got looking at it and went, no, let's put it this way. Literally, any similarity between characters or people, people and places that I've run into is quite intentional. Okay, I literally drew on personal life experiences. Okay, and many of the characters, and specifically the mainstream characters in the Yldrbacian Chronicles, in the Birth of the Wolf Pack, are literally patterned after characters that other people built. And what I did, like, you take, for instance, the primary character, okay, in the Yldrbacian Chronicles, who is Jeremiah Wollstrand. Okay, now Jeremiah Wollstrand was a character that as I told you yesterday, I did actually build him myself. He was the first character for Aftermath that I built with a specific purpose in mind. So I built him, and in that character, I came up with a concept, and I took a lot of the things that I believed in myself in the first place, and things that I found that I was drawn to. So there's a lot of me in that character, much as like with the other main characters in the story. Okay. Most of the primary characters were either created by somebody else. They were certainly created by somebody. Most of the primary ones, during whatever game system we were working on, were actually built based on characters other people built. Or in many cases, some of the ones that I personally built. Other than that, a lot of the people that you'll meet are based on people I personally run into. Okay, now obviously the names you'll find are not the names of the people that they actually are patterned after. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The people who they're patterned after may well recognize them, but John Doe down the street isn't likely to. Same as many of the places. And I'll tell you some of the places I'm talking about I have personally seen, but you're going to look at it going, that you're just making that up for the story. And I would love to say that was the case, but that's not quite the way it worked. And again, I'm not here to prove which way it went. This is just the way that the creative process took place for me. Okay. I was always told when you're writing, make sure that you write something you know. Well, of course, in my case, I happen to have been playing. I've been playing D&D since I was 13. I've been dealing with aliens, with off-world technologies, with spirits and ghosts since I was born. Okay. And as you'll find out with Jeremiah, like myself, I come from a military background. I grew up on a small military base. And in all fairness, I never did agree with war, ever. War has never brought peace. It has brought quiet, but it has never brought peace. And, much as my father and many of my, I think all of my uncles actually, and if I'm right, my aunt, were all members of the military. I've got a great deal of respect for for veterans. A lot of questions around the military directives, but the veterans themselves that have gone, the people that stand up for what they believe in, that step forth to protect their nation, their homes, this sort of thing. I absolutely applaud you. Okay. That said, with the writing of this story, Jeremiah he was in the military, and he was in for a couple of years. He put in his time, and he got out. Okay. But when I built the character, I literally told the game master in question, I literally told him, I didn't, and I was speaking as Jeremiah, I didn't ask for this world to go to heck in a handbasket. But daggit, since it did, I'm going to have the best of the best. Right. And I spent the entire time I was working with him. As a matter of fact, the one neat little part about that particular character, okay, was he literally off game time while we were gaming. Okay, Jeremiah died during one campaign, and for the next several months, every time we were playing, I would take a moment out and talk to the game master and see about bringing him back into the game in a different way. Well, long story short, a number of years later, okay, the game master pulled up roots and left town. A number of years later, I ended up out in the same city he had moved to, and he was still running a game. So in order to come into the game, okay, instead of building a brand new character, we brought Jeremiah, who I brought with me, and we inserted him into the game. He was literally brought back from the dead, and to the best of my knowledge, as far as characters go, this is the only one I've ever heard of where an actual character, after he got killed, during game time, managed to talk his way back into another game. Okay. And, I mean, that's where Jeremiah came from. So I started the book off. I started off with the idea of, okay, where's the easiest place? Well, if you're a gamer, you understand this one all too well. Okay, we started it off in a bar. Okay. Now, when I started writing, I didn't even think about it. I just went, here it is, and it started unraveling. It started writing itself, essentially. So Jeremiah was definitively based on a character that was built. The first person you run into, the first character that you run into, that Jeremiah runs into, a lady by the name of Jade Kobayashi, was designed by another person. Okay. In all fairness, Jade was designed in a game called Champions, which is a superhero game. Okay. But I like the way the personality was laid out. I like the way that the whole thing was done. So I simply took that and patterned the character after that one. I did not go and talk to the player. I didn't get all the input into how they would deal with it. I just patterned it after it. Okay. So Jade ended up being patterned after another character that had been built. Okay, and you'll get to find out about that. But the whole thing, the whole ambiance of Casey's Bar and Grill, which is the primary seat. Okay, that's where things started, and I just let them write themselves. And that's how I do a lot of my writing, is I just let the events take place. Sometimes they're surprising even for me. Like way down the road, I was writing a scene and I really didn't realize what I wrote. Okay, until I went back to do the final edit on it. And I come to it and it turns out that in one scene, because we are talking post-apocalyptic, this one scene has a fight breakout where there's some pretty graphic descriptions go on. And the character ends up, killing another one of the adversaries. But after they kill the adversary, because we're right in the middle of a battle, the heat of the whole heat of the battle thing is going on, and of course I'm just writing as it comes out. And what I found out was after the person had been killed, the character in question cut them in half. And it was just, I'm looking at it, when I went back to final edit, I'm going like, that's brutal even from my standpoint. But it was the way it wrote itself out. Okay. So I let the story unveil itself. It wasn't, as I went through, people come into the group. They've all got their own personalities, obviously their own drives. There's intermixing amongst the different characters. Some of them are mainstream characters. Some of them are just filler characters. I mean, if you got a room full of people, a lot of the people there are, quite frankly, they're just what you would call just fillers. But I've done my best in the compendium, which I'm constructing as we go along. I'm doing my best to give everybody a name. So you're not just like, in the event that this ends up becoming, as has already been broached with my editor, with my publisher, it's already been broached, the concept of turning turning the Yldrbacian Chronicles into a movie. Okay, that subject's already been broached. Now, I don't know how that's going to pan out. I do know at this point it looks like I'm going to end up finishing the third book, writing it, so that I know how the story is supposed to play out, because I don't want to feel like I'm being rushed. But as my marketing consultant put it, okay, it's not something I have to rush into. I really want to make certain everything is sitting right from my standpoint. But it is something I am looking at. And hopefully down the road, I mean, here I am, 58 years old. I started this journey when I was 15. Here I am, 43 years later. And I'm looking at potentially taking this series of books and putting them on the market. Okay, turning them into an actual movie. Talk about living in a really bizarre world. If you've been watching these videos for any length of time, or if you go back and look at the original ones I did, there's been a lot of change in the way I've been doing them. Okay, but ultimately it's the same issue. But I've taken my life from a very, very confused, cluttered, scattered direction to a very focused point. Okay, even today I got some editing in that I wasn't planning on. It turns out I'm about a week ahead of schedule on editing, which is on final edit for the end of an epoch, which is the next book coming out. But where it comes to the birth of the wolf pack, okay, it starts off in Casey's Bar and Grill. Now, it's an interesting little place. You'll love the place. The ambience is great. It is a frontier town. Well, it's not exactly frontier, but it's definitely rough and tumble. Okay, it's got a very definite personality all of its own. And you'll meet a whole pile of people in there. And like I said, this story is being written by a gamer. That would be me. Written for gamers. And because of that, there is actually what I found out as I went along writing. Okay, you end up with Jeremiah. Now bear in mind, Jade she's a character that plays a part, but she is not part of the wolf pack. Okay, the wolf pack you get to meet a little down the road. Okay, I don't know how long people give for a story to take off, but here's the thing. Okay, just to give you an idea. It is post-apocalyptic. It is a very active, a very aggressive storyline. I would not recommend it personally for children as such, but young teenagers, I mean, I started gaming when I was 13. I may not be the best person to choose, but we are talking post-apocalyptic. We are talking graphic fight scenes. The two areas that I stayed right away from is there is nothing written in it that is, when I talk about adult, we are talking about your X-rated adult type female-male interaction or whatever. I do not go into the adult writing. Okay. Yes, there is hints that certain things are happening, but that's all tied in, and you'll understand if you're reading it. It is designed, the story is written as a group. It is graphic from the combat side. There's a lot of personal interaction. I like to think it's got some decent character development. But what I found happen was the story really wrote itself, and I didn't actually know until I managed to get to about the third from last chapter of the book. I didn't know where it was going. And at that point, okay, well, before I get to that point, they started off in Casey's, got together, the whole crew, well, most of the crew was gathered together then. Okay, there were four people, I think. Jeremiah is the primary, obviously. 1, 2, 3, 4 more people. 4 out of 7. The birth of the wolf pack. The wolf pack is a group of people, of 7 people from all over the place that come together in order to help make this and make their world a more amicable and more civilized world. Casey's just happens to be the hub. Okay. So like I said, I started writing The Birth of the Wolf Pack really to commemorate the people, the gamers that I gamed with in the Hobbit, in what we called the Hobbit Hole. Okay. It was to commemorate that time. And with The Birth of the Wolf Pack now being in print, now being accessible on Amazon and on Barnes and Noble, on Indigo, now it has been immortalized. Okay. It will last until way after all of the people involved in it are actually gone. To the best of my knowledge, they're all still alive right now. Okay. And the people that attended, if there's any of you out there that this is a direct invitation to those of you that were at the Hobbit Hole in that first gaming crew. Okay. To you guys specifically, if you would like a copy of the Birth of the Wolf Pack, absolutely get in touch with me. There's some of you I've lost total track of. But if you stumble across this and you find it, give me a call because there's a copy waiting for you. The rest of you, there's a way of getting a hold of me. Like I said, you can get a hold of it online or drop me a line at one of the contact points below here. And I will be more than happy to organize sending you one. Okay. The biggest difference between getting it from me directly and getting it from Amazon, the biggest difference is, quite frankly, if it's coming directly from me, then it's coming outside. Okay. Kind of a big difference from that standpoint. That being said, when I wrote the thing, okay, the group gets together, they made a plan to head someplace, and as any gamer knows, okay, we didn't get where we were aiming for. So, got a little sidetracked, went through a bunch of adventures, come across the other 2 people that are actually members of the Wolfpack, got together, and ended up coming back into existence. They all gather at the end of the story. The entire Wolfpack is together. Okay. Which is what the first story, I didn't know until about 3 chapters from the end. I got looking at it going, this story is going to go a lot longer. I've got to tie it off or I'm going to have a book as long as War and Peace. Okay. Which is an interesting situation. The other thing I did was when I wrote about Casey's office. Casey has a collection of books. And I'm in the process of finding all of these books. Some of them I'll be able to find. Some of them probably I may have major issues with. But I'm going to do what I can. Okay. But I've taken a lot of these things that have been going on, a lot of these events that I went through personally, And some of them are going to seem like science fiction, which works out well considering what I'm writing. But the question usually comes up, is it just my imagination? Or am I writing based on what I've been through? Now, I can tell you from my standpoint, it's based on what I've been through. From your standpoint, you get to figure it out. But as I've told other people, okay, for those that believe, no proof is required. For those that do not believe, no proof is likely possible. Okay, my life has been more like science fiction than anything else to start with. But I put the story together. The wolf pack. In all fairness, this front scene here, and this was the neat part about this little scene here. Okay, if you take a look at the front cover, that's got the two wolves at the bottom there. Okay, that scene was literally not actually in the story when I started. Okay, when I found the artist that's doing my work that's over in England, and I gave him what I was looking at for a foreground, for the front cover, he came up with the idea of putting these wolves in the front of it because of what it was called. And it struck me so well, I took a look at that front scene and went, great. Now that I know what I'm dealing with, now that I've got this scene that he's drawn in, I literally went back into the story and added that scene to the story. And this is why I tell people, and this is why I say that this is a question of working together. Yes, I came up with the absolute storyline I was working with, but that storyline was based very much on personal interaction, on personal experience. The front cover of The Birth of the Wolf Pack was directly drawn by the basic of it, as in Jeremiah sitting there in front of the rubble. Okay, that was what I gave him, along with the description of Jeremiah. Okay. Now, for those of you that are into wrestling at all, if you take a look at Jeremiah, you got to understand there is a character that does show that there is a lot of similarity in appearance. The thing you got to realize is that I built Jeremiah in 1982. Okay, there is a wrestler by the name of Undertaker in WWE, or used to be. Okay, if you take a look at the image of him, the Undertaker, from my understanding, he didn't even come into the equation into the WWE until, as far as I understand it, somewhere in the 90s. I built Jeremiah's appearance back in the early 80s. Okay, so I took that storyline, and with the input of some of the people around me, okay, there's a couple of characters that have been brought in simply because somebody that I met, okay, not just random people, but somebody I got to know. There's a couple of characters of secondary or backup characters that are being designed based on an individual coming in and going, hey, gee, I'd love to fit into that situation. Okay, I'd love to be a part of this story. Some of these characters are literally because people have asked me if there's any place to write them in. Now, I clearly cannot write them, I cannot obviously I'm not going to put anybody's name in there. And there are very few people that know anything about who characters are patterned after. Okay, and never by name. So, the reality of it from my standpoint is I've taken all these different parts and brought them together. Okay, and now with The Birth of the Wolf Pack out, it wrote itself very easily. I'm currently writing all 12 books of the entire saga, which eventually will be something in the neighborhood of 4,800 pages. Okay, I'm currently in the process of writing all 12 books at the same time because they're all interlocked with flashbacks and foreshadowings. that are taking place all over the place. Okay. And one of my goals, obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I am looking down the road, and we've already started talking about it, about looking into turning this into a movie. And I'll tell you, it is something that I'm really excited with the idea of. But my primary focus is to get the story written properly first. So with that in mind, I'm looking at the birth of the wolf pack, at this, the Yldrbacian Chronicles, the latter years, that trilogy written first. Well, the first book's out, the second one is set to come out, is already in the works of coming out at the beginning of next year. And if everything goes well, and I don't know how that's going to play, within the next year or two after that is when the Return to Paradise, the final book in the trilogy, will come out. I'm going to do my best, if I can stay on a solid path, to get the third one out by the end of 2022. But we'll see what happens. So the wolf pack goes out now, right at the tail end of the birth of the wolf pack. Okay, there is an interesting little addition that kind of fell into the story, and that was an actual game, an actual role-playing game taking place inside the bar they're in. Okay, so and this is why I say I am a gamer. This story was written with gamers in mind, and to that end, okay, there are gamers that are throughout a lot of the stories. Okay, some of them, and you'll get to see it. Okay, I do my best to tie it together. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to bring this to a close because, like I said, we keep this to the half-hour mark. And the one message, and you'll notice, like I said, I returned to this world for one reason: to pass on a message to everyone in existence that working together, we can make this a better world for most everybody. Even in the Yldrbacian Chronicles, you'll find this same theme going on where people working together can make positive things happen. So I will be back again tomorrow. Until that time, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.